Hello and welcome to today's webinar by Philanthropia. Yeah, I think we can slowly get started, even if more people join along the way. That's not a big problem. Today we're talking about AI and how it can maximize impact in 2025. And thank you all so much for joining for this important topic. Just checking. Okay, but recording seems to be in progress, so everything should be fine. I have prepared a presentation that I will go through with you, and afterwards we have time for questions. So if you do have any questions, it would be great if you could use the Q&A box, and then I can get back to your questions at the end. You can use the chat to talk with each other, to network, and it would be great if you put your questions in the Q&A box. Maybe you can say hi in the chat to see if it works, if it's open, because sometimes we have had some issues with because I think it's disabled. See, so it's good to check. Now I think it should be open. Yes, perfect. So the first hi is in the chat. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay, now it's rolling. I'm very sorry. Sometimes Zoom changes up the pre-settings, so then these things are not open. But now we have this, and you also have the Q&A box that you could use for your questions that you want me to answer at the end. So again, you can use the chat to network with each other, to just say hi, and see if where you're from. Maybe you can type that in, and why you're interested in this topic. That's that's a great way to just get to know your peers and to develop a network as well. Okay, so we can jump right in. My name is Eva. I think if you've been in the philanthropia sphere for longer, you know me because I do most of our webinars and many of our online courses. I'm from Germany, and I'm also based in Germany right now, but I used to live and work in Nepal and in South America. I've been in Nepal for 7 years in total, but 3 years in South America. So yeah, I've most of my adult life I've been abroad, but now I've been back in Germany since 2019 and work here with German NGOs and foundations and organizations, but I still do a lot of work with grassroots NGOs across the world, because that really is my passion. That's really what I like to do. So today we will talk about AI, and we'll start with a definition. What is AI? How was it developed? What can it do? Why is everybody talking about it right now? And then we'll talk about how to use it in fundraising. So we'll talk about individual fundraising, grants, chatbots, etc., all the options that you have to use AI to make your fundraising more successful, more streamlined, and more productive. And then in the end, we'll also look at some considerations, some risks that are associated with AI, because like with every technology, it's not everything is rosy around it. There's some things that you do have to consider. There's some rules that you do have to follow so that you don't get in trouble, and that you can make sure that you really use this technology for a positive impact. Starting with the definition, what is AI? AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it simulates human intelligence through machine learning, powering language processing, image recognition, and predictive analytics, with advancements aiming for broader adaptability. So I think we call it artificial intelligence, and it can do many, many things that seem to be creative, but at the moment, what AI can do is not the same that humans can do. Sometimes we have this confusion that it feels like, because talking to a chatbot and all these interactions and everything that it does seems so human-like that we think that it has the same kind of reasoning behind it and the same logic in finding the answers, but that is not the case yet. We do not have an AI that is creative all by itself. It usually always takes things that it has learned and puts it together in a new and creative way. So the results it comes up with are amazing, and do feel very creative and do feel new, but they are not a creation of the AI by itself, but a creation with the data that someone provided to the AI. So that kind of is an important distinction to have in mind. Also, one issue that we see is that nobody really knows 100% how AI comes up with its answers. Even the people who have written the algorithms are not always sure why AI comes up with those answers. So that is a huge challenge that sometimes makes it difficult to kind of understand what's behind it. And then oftentimes it can feel very human-like, but it's still different. Why is everybody talking about it now? Because AI is something that has been in our lives for years. It's nothing new. AI is in every phone, every smart home appliance, every computer works with AI already for a long, long time. The term was coined in the 1950s. And even I remember that in the 90s, I think, there was this first chess computer that was powered by AI that won against the human chess champion. I remember that was a really, really big news piece in the press when I was a child. So we've had AI for a long, long time, and it's been everywhere. We probably cannot live well without AI anymore, because we are all using our phones to navigate. We're all using our phones to predict stuff, and rely on Amazon to kind of know what we want to buy, in a way. So it's been around for a long, long time. But since ChatGPT or OpenAI with the products first came out to the public with those systems that you could actually use as an end user, it has come to the forefront of the discussion, and everybody's talking about it now because with those new services, new softwares, new algorithms that have been released, suddenly AI was not something that somebody else programmed and it was in your phone, but it was something that you could actually interact with, that you could create things with. So that was when ChatGPT came out, DALL-E came out, and then everybody else followed. OpenAI often was the first one to put out big free available services, but then everybody else followed. And here on this slide, you can just see a couple of the logos of the big ones that you've probably all heard of. ChatGPT is the most famous one, I think. Sometimes we get to the point that we kind of equate ChatGPT with large language models as if there were no others, but there's plenty others as well. We have Gemini by Google. This is also a very big one. Midjourney was the first really great AI that could do pictures, and almost photo-like creations. Mistral is the first, a new one that is based in Europe, which is different because most of these services are based in the US. DeepSeek has made a big splash with a whale as a logo. That's really fitting when they came on the market because they are using a different system. It's not based on big servers, but it can be based on individual computers. So that was a huge difference, and they are based in China. But very little of these services are based in Europe. So Mistral is new in that sense. They all do a bit different things. They have a different focus. Sometimes it's on research, sometimes it's on writing text material, it's on pictures, etc. But they are the big AI names that you kind of know and that have been discussed a lot in the last years and months. So this is why everybody's talking about it now, because everybody can use it and has to find a way to deal with it. And with things like ChatGPT becoming available, sometimes then management of companies also said, okay, now it's available, now use it to save time, use it to become more effective. And that is why so many people have had to grapple with it and try to understand it. This is a picture of ChatGPT. You probably all know how this works already, but we still put in this slide because there's still some people that join our webinars that say, oh, I've never used AI before. I've never even typed anything in it. So most of the large language models, so the ones that produce text, look like this. They have a chat window, and you can just type in stuff and it answers. And it really feels like a human interaction because you ask something, it answers, it feels very personal. I know many people, and I've had plenty of discussions about this on LinkedIn, that say, oh, it feels so much like a human that I'm polite. I say thank you and please, and I write full sentences, and I'm careful not to make typos because I don't want to offend the AI. And that is because it feels so human. Obviously, it's not human. It's an algorithm, but yeah, it feels like it. And I think there's different studies. Some studies say that the results that it produces are actually better when you're polite, talking politely with it. Um, and there's other studies that say that it doesn't matter. But in general, I think it's never wrong to be polite. And then there's this joke that goes around where people say, "Well, I always say thank you to ChatGPT, so that when the robots take over, they will be nice to me." I think that's quite funny. I don't think that will be taken over by ChatGPT, but again, it never hurts to be nice. And then also, the way that AI works is that everything we put into it is used to train it as well. It learns from interacting with us. It doesn't necessarily take all the messages that we type in and uses them in their database, but every interaction we have with it is training it. And so the nicer the interaction and the nicer we talk to the algorithm, the more it learns that you should have conversations in a polite way. Obviously, it's programmed that way that it should always be polite and it's not going to insult you. Um, but still, I think that is very good because it's a little bit like an echo chamber. And the more good things we put in, the more good things we get back. I think a good example of the opposite is those were chatbots of the first generation. But years ago, Twitter, there was one chatbot put on Twitter. It was AI as an novelty, and people were able to interact with that chatbot, and everybody was very excited. And it didn't have all those filters, it didn't have all the security systems that we have today. And so after, I think it was just a couple of hours, the chatbot started insulting people and being very rude, being very racist, because people fed it that stuff, so it just repeated it. So that's why I think today there's many more security layers to it, so that's not it's not going to happen exactly like that again. But still, it's never wrong to be polite, even if it's just to a machine. But that feels very human-like. So you type in your message. It can be a request. It can be a question. It can just be a conversation starter. And you go from there. Obviously, it already says, has some examples here, but this screenshot is a bit older. I think that looks a tiny bit different right now. It says what it can do and the limitations. And this is something we'll talk about a lot today. It may occasionally generate incorrect information. This is something that you really have to keep in mind because it still does that. It was way worse in the beginning, but it still does that. It's called hallucinating, when AI makes up something completely new to kind of fill gaps. And that is really an issue when you work with AI. So now let's look at how you can use AI in fundraising, in all those different areas of fundraising that we do have. One big area where you can use it is individual fundraising or collecting donations, because when you work with donations, when you try to attract individual donors or maybe even major donors, people who give more than just a couple of dollars, you do need to write a lot of material because you need to send out letters, you need to send out newsletters, you need to write articles, social media posts, etc. And that can get very overwhelming very quickly. And many organizations either just have very limited, for example, profiles on social media, or they do have them but don't really put a lot of content on them. And this is where AI can really come in and help you. And this is one of the big areas, I think, where there's huge potential in using AI to create copy, to create text that you need and that you want to publish, to talk about your project, to attract new donors, etc. So the first thing it can do is it can create copy very quickly. Copy meaning text. So if you need to write an article for your website, or if you need to write even a report, an email, a campaign email, newsletter, whatever it might be, AI can really help you in creating that text. Obviously, you cannot expect it to create the perfect text that you can then just use, but it's a start. I know many people that have huge problems with that white page, that when they have to start writing any material, an article, an email, if they start with a blank page, they are in trouble because they can't find a beginning, they don't know how to start, etc. And AI can help you with that, because if you tell AI, I need to write a fundraising email for my Christmas campaign, and my NGO does this and this and this and this, and this is how much money we want. Please give me a first draft. Then you have something you can then work on. You obviously have to make it more personal. You have to make it more specific. You have to make it more emotional. So you still have to work on the text. You cannot use the AI text and send it out and then hope to generate lots of donations with it. But you do have a start, and you can go from there. Also, you can reuse existing text for other purposes. So if you have a blog article and you want to create a newsletter post out of it, instead of having to work on that for an hour or two and trying to make it shorter and make it different, you can just tell ChatGPT, please make a newsletter posting out of this. And then again, you have a draft that you just have to adjust a bit, and then you have your result. So it really saves you a lot of time in creating all the copy that you need. It can also help you to mine ideas of what to write about, because that sometimes can be difficult if you um, have, if you work for 1 or 2 years for one organization and you have to do social media, or um, you have to do outreach, write emails, etc., you will feel very quickly as if you're out of ideas. It will feel like you've written about everything. And also many times you are talking to a target group that you're not part of. So you might not even know 100% what they're interested in. So you can ask AI for ideas what to write about. For example, if you want to write a fundraising letter to people that are 60 years and older, maybe you don't know what they would be interested in concerning your project. But AI might know, not perfectly, but they have ideas because they have been fed with a lot of consumer research data, etc. So they know kind of what these age groups are interested in, what the areas and topics are that would be attractive for them. So you can get ideas what to write about. It can suggest you blog post, a blog article, titles, etc., all of that stuff. You can change perspective. Like I said, if you're not part of the group that you want to talk to, it can be very hard to imagine what they're interested in. So it can help you with that. It can also help you to be like a proofreader, not only for typos, we'll get to that, but also for um, the question if your article is complete, if anything's missing, if there's a perspective missing, etc. They can be kind of your sparring partner, because you can ask things and you get feedback, and that feedback is mostly based on data. You can also get ideas on who to appeal to. So you can say, I want to get donations from small businesses in my city. Who could I talk to? And you will get a list of ideas. Most of the time, 50% of the people on that list are not a good idea. But then that's up to you to decide about that. But you have a start. You don't have to sit down with your business registry and go through everything. You get a list that you can work off of. And social media content, obviously, if you have social media profiles, it can be hard to create all that content, but with the help of AI, you can, for example, use an existing blog article and make make social media content out of it, use it to make an Instagram posting, etc. So you can reuse the stuff that you already have, and again, save a lot of time and focus that you can then put on other things. What you do need to learn for that is prompting. Prompts are the instructions we give to artificial intelligence. So the things you write into that box, and that is correct for large language models, so where you get text, but also when you get pictures, you always have to work with prompts. You have to tell the AI what you want to see, and have good instructions ready. And prompting is almost an art of itself. I know many people that I teach or I train in AI, and they always say, well, we've tried it, but the results were so bad, so we just left it again. We're not trying again. This is just a waste of time. And most of the time that is because the prompts are not right. They don't know how to prompt and how to learn the process of really writing the right things to get the right results. So I'm sharing a couple of tips here. There's tons of material online about this. There's even courses now that you can take to get a degree and be a prompt engineer, because that's such a big field. And also every single system is different. Prompting for Midjourney is very different than prompting for ChatGPT, because it needs different information. ChatGPT can read longer prompts, Midjourney can only read short ones. There's stuff like that you kind of have to learn individually for every platform that you work with. But in general, these are some good tips that you can work off. So you need to tell the AI precisely what you want it to do. You need to craft your prompts to achieve useful and relevant results. And this be precise is super important. The more context you give and the more specific information, the better the results that you get. You also have to give AI a role. So if AI doesn't know which role it's supposed to take on, results will be much more vague. But if you say, okay, you are a fundraising officer in NGO XYZ, you are writing an email to a potential major donor, then AI knows, oh, okay, this is my position, this is the kind of language I'm supposed to use, this is the kind of values I'm supposed to have, etc. Or you can do it the other way. You can say, you are a rich person, a business person that is looking for an NGO to support. What would be interesting for you? But you have to tell AI which position it's supposed to take on. Then you get good results and they become much more precise. It's like with a recipe. If you just have vague instructions, your recipe will not turn out, and it's the same with AI. Vague prompts will not turn up a good result. So really be precise. Don't take on a position. So if you if you're leaning towards something in your question, your prompt, then the AI will kind of reproduce that. So if you ask the AI what are the benefits of eating vegan, then you will get an objective list of benefits. But if you say what are the supposed benefits of eating vegan, then you will get something much more critical. So AI will mirror what you put in. So you have to be careful with what words you use, so that you're not leaning towards one side, or that you're only leaning towards the side if you want to lean, if you want the AI to make assumptions. Yeah, tools like ChatGPT or DeepSeek are designed for conversational interactions. So framing your prompts as if you're collaborating with a team member ensures more relevant and effective results. Again, if you want to use it to kind of play off ideas, to brainstorm, etc., that is the way to go, because that way you get good results, and AI knows in which position it's supposed to be in, which is the position of your team member, to kind of discuss ideas, to brainstorm. What I really like is this change of perspective that you can take on with the help of AI, because you can discuss things that you would only see from your own perspective otherwise. You can get new input, you can get new ideas that you would never have come up with normally. If in a perfect world where every NGO has a huge budget and is able to do their outreach in the perfect way, we would all have studies, marketing studies of our target groups. We would know exactly who our donors are, and we would know exactly what they're interested in, what their values are, what the reasons are why they support us. But as we all know, we do not live in that perfect world, and usually the budget for that stuff is non-existent in most NGOs that I've ever worked with. You might have a communications budget and obviously a fundraising budget, but seldomly you have enough money to really look at the people that do support you and analyze what they would be interested in. But studies have also shown if the material that you send out is completely tailored to the person that reads it, the success rate is much higher. It's the same thing that we always tell you when we talk about reaching out to donors. The better you know the donor, the better you can write that letter. The higher is the probability they will answer. And of course, it's the same for individual donors. If you get a donation appeal and it's worded like it's, let's say you are 20 years old, and the donation appeal is worded super formal and weirdly, as if it's meant for somebody who's 60 years plus, you don't feel like this is for you, and you don't feel like you should answer to this or react to this. But if it's framed in a way that is interesting for you, then you will be interested and maybe give to that campaign. Um, but often, again, we don't know that perspective because we just have our own. We just know our own perspective. Um, and so AI can be a great chance to have those conversations and to see what is interesting for other people, what is interesting for other age groups, for other target groups, what could be interesting for a donor in this project, what could be the thing that we can point out, that we can focus on because it's individual and it's specific, etc. So this change of perspective really, really has a lot of potential. And I really encourage everyone to have those conversations with ChatGPT or LeChat or Gemini or whatever system you're using. AI is, I think, in the long term going to support us. It's another tool. It's not going to replace our jobs, because specifically in fundraising, we still have to focus a lot on this individual emotional connection with potential donors. We have to look at how to create empathy, etc. And those are things that AI cannot do very well. They theoretically know how it works, but again, they're not a human, so they cannot make that human connection. So I think in the long run, AI is always going to be a tool, and we have to learn how to work with it. We have to learn new skills. But it's, I think, at least in the fundraising sector, it's not going to completely replace us. It's hopefully going to replace those tedious, time-consuming tasks that do not need creativity and that do not need an emotional bond, and give us more time to focus on the things that we want to do, which is connecting with people, talking to people, etc. Another way we can use AI in fundraising is chatbots. Um, Maybe you've seen many, many pages that of the big companies, they have customer service, but if nobody is available, or if you're on the website out of their office hours, there's a chatbot that you can talk with. And that also works for NGOs. If you program the chatbot very well, and if it has all the donation information, all the information about your projects, it can be something to put on a website, to communicate with potential donors, to give out information that is relatively that is not individual. That is the same for everyone. So, for example, if they ask what's the bank connection, what kind of projects do you have, how do you support women, etc., those are questions that you can probably answer relatively the same for everyone. Chatbots are not a good way for smaller organizations, I would say, because it takes a lot of resources to make them work perfectly. And they do need to work perfectly, because if they give weird answers, or if people feel like they're talking to a robot, then that is not going to be helpful in the long run. So this is probably something for bigger organizations, but I think the longer this is around, the easier it will be to program a chatbot, even for smaller organizations and at lower cost. So this will become a good option, I think, in the future. Now we get to AI for grant writing. I know many of you apply for grants and are interested in understanding how I can help you there. And I think there's many different ways here as well. For example, the donor research field. To me, honestly, it's still a bit disappointing what AI can do in that field. But it's getting there. Many people are working on it. There's more specific systems already in place that can find donors. But you have to go a bit further than just using ChatGPT. We will look at that in a moment. Spell check and tonality definitely are areas where ChatGPT can really help you and can make sure that your proposal is perfect when you send it off, or Grammarly, or whichever. As you notice, I also use ChatGPT as a stand-in for AI, but obviously I also mean other systems. It's just the system that I also work with mostly. So this comes to my mind when I talk about it, but obviously you can use any other system as well. The preparation of the first draft for the proposal, that's also something where AI can help you. I've seen chatbots that had questions that you could follow along, and then in the end, you'd have a first draft of a proposal. Others do it differently, but they can really help you to put together that information that you need. And then there's AI tools that help you with the planning of the entire application process, guide you through it. So they are also very, very helpful. This is just a very general slide about some of the challenges NGOs face and the AI solutions in the process that AI can give. If you have a limited budget that restricts your program reach and the staff capacity, and with AI you can automate a lot of tasks, optimize campaigns, and reduce cost. So obviously that's helpful long term. Here, this one at the bottom, I think is super interesting for most of you, the language barriers, because if you do have them, if English is not your first language, or maybe you even want to apply in a country that has a different language, and you would need to apply in that language, you have limitations, but AI translations are really good by now and can help you with that and can help you overcome those language barriers. I think those are the biggest parts that can help you. Donor research, like I said, I think there's huge potential, but that's probably not used to the maximum until now. This in ChatGPT, it's interesting, the kind of results that you get. I often use Perplexity, which is an AI system that has more potential for research, and they give you more sources as well. But with ChatGPT, I still make the experience that it makes up foundations if it doesn't find enough foundations. Often also, ChatGPT comes up with donors that do give, but then not necessarily to small NGOs. So it doesn't really understand the difference between a donor, like, let's say, the World Bank, that does fund projects, but it's not a good partner for a small scale NGO in Nepal, because you can't send an application to the World Bank if they don't have an open program. So it doesn't really understand that difference every single time. Sometimes you get very lucky, but then sometimes you run into trouble. So you really, everything you find when you research donors, you have to double and triple check and see if they would really be a good partner. Again, Perplexity is a bit better for that, and there have been systems that are starting to work with AI and to give databases of foundations, but those are mostly paid services. So with what is available for free right now, you have options. It's a start, but you still have to use all the other ways of finding donors, I would say, that are out there. Spell check and tonality, I think, are great because often donors expect you to kind of send a perfect English proposal, even if English is not your first language. So, for example, Grammarly can really help you to put together something that also sounds good. You can also ask ChatGPT to write a letter, a query, an introduction, etc. for you. You can change the tone with the help of AI. That is always helpful if you have a letter that is super formal and you want to send it to someone that you've already talked to, so it doesn't need to be that formal. You can change it up. Or you can move from bullet points to full text, which is often super helpful if you have bullets describing the activities you want to do, but you need to put it in text form. That helps. Often you have a limitation, a character limitation that you can put in proposals, so ChatGPT can help you with that, even though it's not exact always, because the large language models can write, but they can't count and they can't calculate, they can't do math. Sometimes there's issues there. But there's many ways that you can use it here as well to just make your proposal better, more appealing, and more interesting. The Charity Excellence Net framework, they have a lot of interesting services and try to make AI available also for small NGOs. So I recommend checking them out. And they, I'm not 100% sure if they still have it in this form, but they used to have a chat bot. It was a chat bunny that would lead through 17 questions. And then in the end, when you answered those questions with enough detail, with enough context, they'd give you a first draft of a short application, a short proposal, because they lead you through the process. And that is, I think, super helpful because every time we do webinars and trainings on proposal writing, I always try to explain the difference between the sections. There's so much confusion between what is an activity, what's an impact, what's an objective, etc. And these questions don't say, tell me your objective, but they ask, what do you want to achieve with your project? What is the change in the lives of your participants that you want to achieve? And that then is the objective. So it's much easier to make the distinctions that you later need. So this is super, super helpful to have a first draft that you can then work off of. And there's plenty of other services that do that by now as well. They were one of the first that I found, but there's other services that do this by now that you can check out and gives you a first draft, and then you can work from there. Obviously, you still need tons of layers of content. You need to give all that information. You need to add specifics. But again, you have something to work off of, and you don't start with the white page. The planning of the application process can also be helped by AI because you have so many planning tools like an automatic scheduler, project planning tools that can help you to streamline tasks and to have people on board, to have your whole team planning an application process, going through it and being productive, not missing any deadlines, etc. So the AI tools can also help you with that, but that's more on the management side. We also have a couple of considerations and risks that we have to look at. Those, what I went through now, I think are some of the biggest ways that you can use AI in fundraising if we look at the entire field. There's plenty of options of other things that you can do with it, obviously. There's plenty of options also to use AI in your project. So this is just in fundraising, resource mobilization, but in your projects, there's so many opportunities where you can use AI. And I think if you think about ways to include AI in an innovative way, you will always also have support from donors because, as you know, they're always looking for innovation. So if you find ways how to include AI, for example, in planning the distribution of stuff, if you do that, developing trainings, etc., that's often a plus point when you apply for funding with donors because usually they do like that if you have if you're innovative and if you're including those new ideas in your project planning as well. Obviously, there's some considerations and risks that we have to talk about that you've probably also read a lot about, but you you also have to think of those things because you can't just jump in without preparing. The truthfulness is a huge issue that you have to think about. AI models often rely on outdated training data because AI needs to be trained. This is not something, it's not like, I mean, Google to some degree also needs to be trained, but Google searches the internet for keywords. AI needs curated data to be fed to it so it can work with it. So AI doesn't search the internet for information like Google does, but the information needs to be fed into it in some shape or form. Gemini says that they also rely on current data. I'm not 100% sure how true that is, but ChatGPT, LeChat, etc., they all have databases that they're based on. And often they are outdated. So you will not find information about anything that happened yesterday in those systems, not reliable information. And when we talk about, for example, social media posts, that's what people always ask me. But if I write an Instagram post, does it know the hashtags I'm supposed to use? No, it doesn't, because hashtags change every day. If it's something that's trending, that happens so quickly that you will not find that reflected correctly in an AI system yet, because it doesn't happen that quickly. So often it kind of supplements gaps and fills them. So AI will just not tell you, I don't know that. It will make something up. And this is a big problem. And it sounds perfect. It sounds like it makes so much sense. I have conversations, I have pages of conversations where I ask a question and it gives me an answer and I say, well, that's not true. I know that it's not true. And then the system says, oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, that wasn't true. But this is true. And then I look it up and that's also not true. And they say, oh yeah, you're right. I'm very sorry. This is also not true. So it's very difficult to figure out what is true and what is not. And fact checking is crucial. You cannot use anything you take from AI without fact checking it. That's why the way I prefer is not to have AI write a completely new text for me, but to put bullet points in it or to put text that I already have and say, change this text for me, because that it can do very well. But making up a new text with facts or asking for answers is tricky because you always have to fact check everything. You cannot trust it to be truthful. With the data, talking about that, we also have to consider that often the data it is programmed and fed with can be biased, and then it will just repeat the bias. Good example for that is many companies used to use, or still use it, but thought it's a great way to use AI to be less biased in choosing candidates when they apply for a job. So they would have the AI choose which candidate to invite. But obviously the data that they programmed the AI with was the hiring data of the last 30 years. And so sometimes they found that male candidates were invited more or were recommended more by the AI. So they started wondering why. And then they realized in the last 30 years, because of human bias, they had always invited more men. And then the AI thought, oh, so men are better. So they invited more men again. So you just repeat the same mistake that you wanted to avoid. Or another example that I think is quite logical, but just humans don't think that way, where AI was programmed to analyze CT scans of people who had the risk of having cancer, and AI was supposed to say, well, this person has cancer, this person doesn't, but they were programmed with CT scan pictures from the past of obviously of people who had cancer, and every time when there was a tumor, there was also a ruler in the picture. So what the AI learned and later did is that every time there was a ruler in the picture, they said that person had cancer. And they also looked at the tumor, but they also looked at the ruler because AI cannot logically make that distinction. So if the data that is put into AI is biased, so your results will be biased, and that's something you really want to avoid, especially working in NGOs. So we have to be really careful with this. AI is not individual. So text, anything, any material you produce with it will not reflect your individual situation because it doesn't know it. That's why prompting, being specific, is so important. That's why you have to focus so much on these parts. It doesn't always take your specific situation into account if you don't specifically tell it to do so. It's important that material copy you create doesn't clearly sound like AI or that it's generated by AI. So be careful that you change things up, that you make changes to the text as well, also for copyright reasons, that you do make your individual changes so that you also own the text, that it's yours, and that it sounds like it's yours and not like something that you copied from somewhere. So text always needs to be adjusted as well. And then there's some ethical considerations that you have to think about. Where does AI take the data from? And how are content creators protected? Because the data it's fed with isn't data that is just out there naturally. It's data some people put on the internet. So you probably know that all the social media companies sell our data, and sometimes to these AI companies as well. But then they also take stuff that they have no permission taking. This is specifically true for pictures, for example. Many illustrators that need to put their art on the internet to sell it, then AI comes along, takes it as inspiration, and now you can create your own illustrations, sometimes with the style of someone still living, still working, that now cannot sell their own stuff. So we also have to think about, where does that data come from? Are there protections of data that we should consider? And how does that fit with us being NGOs and with us having a charitable purpose? So we don't want to make the situation worse for artists and for content creators either. We have to think about the bias. I already said that. If the data is biased, then the results will be biased, and we don't want to be repeating that. And employment, is AI taking away positions, jobs? We have to think about that, and at least consider how we want to address that as NGOs and as the charity sector. So as a summary, I think AI holds many, many chances and options for us, but it needs to be used with care and with an idea, a strategy behind it. So I think one of the most important things is to talk about how you want to use AI within your own organization, have some rules, regulations, some strategy that you want to follow, and not just use some things and don't use other things without really knowing why. So those will be my final recommendations. Yeah, just a very short outlook before we get to your questions. We do have an online course about online fundraising that talks more about other ways of fundraising online. Here you can see the different modules. So how to fundraise online. Usually we sell this at $75, but today, because you took part in this webinar, you can get it for $37.50 with the coupon code Year of Change. So you can get this course for 50% off if you just use the code Year of Change when you buy it. I think the link should be in the comments right now. Yep. Thank you, Preeti. It's posted already. So if that's interesting for you, just click through and get there. We also have many other courses on our website that could be interesting for you. For example, this is maybe the worst example. This slide is from 2 weeks ago. So it's already needs to be changed. How to raise funds from USAID obviously is not current anymore. But on the left here, how to create attractive logical log frames. How to fundraise from US foundations, which is now more relevant than ever with USAID not pulling its weight anymore. How to write a project plan. 5 obstacles on your way to fundraising success. That's our flagship course. So all of these online courses are available on the website. You can go through them in your own pace. They are completely self-led, so you also have lifetime access. so you don't have to rush through it. And because you joined this webinar, we have a 35% coupon for you as well with the coupon code fundraise. You can get them for 30%, 35% off as well. And my colleague also just posted another resource that we have just published, a short session on USAID funding crisis, what to do when your organization is affected by it, and that is on YouTube, and you can find it in the comments right now, the link to it. We also have a donor database. If you look for options for donor research, we have more than 5,000 donor profiles available. So you can just search through the database to find potential funders for your project. You can find it at donordatabase.org, and I think there's a week that you can try it out before it becomes a paid service. Thank you very much for attending. Please make sure to check out the rest of our program. Join us again for another webinar, and we now still have time for some questions, and I see there's a couple of questions in the Q&A box. That I will try to answer now. The first one is when it comes to drafting, how can I know that proper citing is used and not Wikipedia? I'm sure that Wikipedia is used as a source for a lot of the stuff that AI presents, and usually the information on Wikipedia is not wrong. You can just not use it as a scientific source. And usually in a proposal, you wouldn't use scientific sources either. Sometimes maybe with a footnote if it's something very specific. But in general, I've never used proper scientific citing in proposals. So I don't think just to take information from Wikipedia, again, if it's not something, in my experience, usually the information about whatever data of a country is correct. If you take information about a celebrity, then maybe it's not correct on Wikipedia because people just keep changing it up all the time. But usually I wouldn't think that's a huge issue. You could still, what I usually do is when I have AI write something for me, I ask it for where did you take this data from? And then it gives me sources, and then I check the sources and see if it's there, if it's correct there. And if it's not, then I look for other sources myself to make sure that it's not based on some weird homepage. It's another question. Does it make a difference if you do your donor research in English or in Spanish? I guess AI is trained in English. Most AI is trained in English. So what happens oftentimes, I use it in German, obviously many times. And for example, when I want to prompt to get a picture, I ask ChatGPT, I want this picture, I describe my picture. Can you give me a prompt that I would have to use in DALL-E, which is the picture generating AI that I use. And then it always tells me, oh, I will give you the prompt in English because it understands English better. I think if you use English, it's a bit easier for it and you might get fractionally better results. But if you're uncomfortable in English and you're not being able to be as precise as you would be in Spanish, then I think it's better to prompt in Spanish. But in general, most of those systems are trained in English and have most of their data in English. So if you can, English is always the best way. And then there's another question. AI and other technological tools are not available for small NGOs. So we cannot pay for monthly fees on a regular basis. Can we apply for funding for this first step to grow as CSOs? Yes, but funding is scarce. This is one of my biggest criticisms that I have of the sector, because I believe that funding organizational development properly would be the key to having a successful NGO sector worldwide. So unfortunately, there's not that many programs, but there are a couple. There are some programs that you can apply with, some donors that you can apply with for organizational development, and this would fall under that. But oftentimes, you can also, when you apply for a project, and if you can justify that you would need an AI software, an AI service to perform that project, you can maybe include it in a project budget as well. But yeah, in general, that's a big difficulty. There's lots of stuff that is free as well. Then it often has some restrictions that you can only use it 7 times a day or 10 times a day, or just a limited amount of words that you can put in, but at least you can get a head start. Personally, I'm worried about biases in AI, sexist and violent speech, replicating human stereotypes and prejudices, how to deal with this. That's a very good point. I tried to address that as well. I think the way to address that is to be super vigilant. We cannot take something that AI gives us and then just copy paste it. We always have to check it for all those things and be careful that it doesn't replicate. I mean, specifically violent speech. I mean, we will notice that and then not use it, obviously. Other biases are more difficult to see, but we have to be super vigilant and try to understand and not repeat that kind of stuff. And also tell AI, well, this is sexist. This is not something I want to see repeated, to help train it and to help get those things out and just raise awareness about it. But I think this comes back to our personal responsibility to always check and recheck what AI gives us and then change it if necessary so we don't repeat it. But the worry is absolutely justified. I don't think there's a technical solution yet. I think more and more become aware of this, but then on the other hand, with things happening in the world right now, who knows? But it is something that I think right now we have the responsibility to be vigilant about. Um, Then there's one question about the course. How does the self-directed study happen for a course like the elevator pitch? Well, with all of our courses, we usually have an introduction, a text, and then a video, so you can just watch the video on your own time. Then we have resource guides that you can download. Sometimes there's a workbook that you work through. There's exercises that you're supposed to do. You don't have to send them in, you just do them for yourselves. And then at the end, there's a test that you go through with, yeah, it's not a super difficult test. It's a what's that called? When you choose an answer, multiple choice test. Um, and after that, you finish the course. That's basically the system of most of our online courses. So a combination of downloadable resources, workbooks, and video content, where you listen and watch a video accompanied by a presentation. Then there's a question about an example. I can't really show an example right now, but we can make, I will take this under consideration to make another course that is more practical, where we can maybe go through the process of how to write a fundraising email, how to put this all together, and the steps that you have to take, if that hasn't become clear now. At the moment, we do not have the courses available in French yet. We're thinking about translating with AI as well. There have been some issues, so the quality wasn't up to par with what we wanted, but we're working on it, and I hope that one day we can offer other languages as well. Thank you. And then the last question, do donors accept AI texts? Well, I think if it's super obvious that it's an AI text, then obviously no, that's not doing you any favors. But I do not think any donor minds if you use all the tools out there to make your proposal better. I mean, nobody cares if you use spell check, and that's also a form of AI. And I think that will be the norm in the future, that everybody uses AI. And usually, if you do it well, donors cannot tell if it's AI either. So again, you shouldn't just copy the text and use that. You have to put your own words in it. You have to use your own wording. You have to use your own facts. You kind of have to use your own framing, your own context, etc. And then nobody will tell. Then it's just a tool that helps you to be more productive and to write better, Never copy what the AI gives you and just use that. That doesn't work. And I think a donor would mind that, definitely. But if you just use it to make your text better, to be more productive, to be faster, etc., then I think it would make no difference. And I think donors appreciate if you send them good texts, and they don't mind if you use a consultant to help you with it. So I'm sure they also don't mind if you help AI to help you with it, as long as it's about your project, your target group, if all the factual information is correct, and as long as you're still able to make that personal connection and make it yours. Okay, those were all the questions that I've seen right now. Thank you so much for taking part in this. I hope to see you again very soon in one of our next webinars, and that you stay part of the Philanthropia family. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.